Ever wondered about history's hidden tales? Sometimes the most fascinating stories stay locked away. And as we grow older, history becomes more exciting, and each day we get to know mysterious untold stories. So in this video today, let's dig deep into some forgotten historical facts that we're forbidden to discuss. Here we begin. Christopher Columbus. A famous navigator, Christopher Columbus made a big mistake in his calculations. Thinking the Earth was smaller than it was, he aimed to reach India by sailing west. On August 3, 1492, he set off with 90 people in Pinta, Nina, and Santa Maria ships. Instead of India, he reached the Bahamas and Haiti, calling the locals Indians. Columbus kept searching for India but found Central and South America instead. Even though he discovered a new continent, he stuck to calling it Asia until 1497 when Amerigo Vespucci marked it as a separate land on maps. Aqueducts of ancient Rome. In ancient Rome, aqueducts were a big deal. They were like special channels that brought water to the city and helped with sewage. The first aqueduct came around in 312 BC, and people loved how handy they were. More and more aqueducts were built, some even going underground. The engineers sometimes faced challenges like ravines, but they solved them by building cool arch bridges above the ground. Some of these arches, like the Pont du Gard in France, are still around today. The ancient Romans used strong materials like stone, brick, volcanic rocks, and concrete to make these aqueducts. They planned everything carefully, using tools like levels and angle meters. Before putting in pipes, they even made a stone base. The pipes had a U-shape and were big enough for someone to crawl inside for repairs. They put arch-shaped roofs over the pipes to keep them clean. Despite being 2,300 years old, many of these aqueducts still stand strong and could last for thousands more years. The history of ketchup. Did you know that ketchup, the famous tomato sauce, didn't start with tomatoes? It actually began in China with a sauce called ketchup made from minced fish. In the early 18th century, British merchants found this sauce interesting and brought it back home. The ketchup recipe changed a lot after that. The British tried different ingredients like mushrooms, nuts, fruits, and even oysters. The ketchup we know today with tomatoes only appeared in 1876. The first company to make it was Heinz in the USA. People were unsure about this new sauce, so Heinz started selling it in clear bottles to build trust. Over time, ketchup became popular not just in the USA, but worldwide. Emu Battle with Big Birds. After World War I, about 5,000 Australian soldiers got land in the West, but their peace was disrupted by emus, big birds like ostriches. Around 20,000 emus invaded, wrecking crops, fences, and water supplies. Life became tough, and in 1932, they declared war on these birds, known as the Great Emu War. However, killing emus turned out to be tricky. These birds are huge, up to 180 centimeters tall and 45 kilograms heavy. They run super fast in groups, making it hard for the soldiers armed with machine guns. Even with tactics, most attacks failed because the emu sensed danger and escaped. In one battle, they managed to kill about 1,000 birds, but it wasn't enough. The defense minister admitted defeat and left the farmers to deal with the emu problem. The lesson here? Don't underestimate your enemy, even if they're birds, especially if they're as clever as emus. Vikings. When we think of Vikings, we often imagine fierce warriors from Scandinavia wearing horned helmets and carrying axes. But were they really like that? The Viking era was between the 8th and 11th centuries. Vikings were sailors from Scandinavia who traveled long distances by sea. They were the first to reach America and even set up communities in what's now Canada. Interestingly, Vikings didn't wear horned helmets as we picture them today. The idea of those helmets came from a play in 1876, not from how Vikings actually looked. There are other myths about Vikings too. Movies suggest they were surrounded by many women, but that's not true. They were faithful to their spouses and often went on voyages with their families. Also, Vikings weren't just rough warriors. They were interested in art like painting, carving wood, and crafting metal. Microwave ovens. Microwave ovens are super important in modern kitchens. They help reheat, defrost, and cook food real quick. The journey of this kitchen gadget started in 1920 when high-frequency radio waves were discovered for heating substances. In 1933, in an exhibition in Chicago, Westinghouse showed how fast food could be cooked using radio waves. But the real hero behind microwave ovens is Percy Spencer, an American engineer. He figured out that the ultra-high frequency radiation could heat food and patented the microwave oven in 1945. Before that, he noticed a chocolate bar in his pocket melted when he was experimenting with a magnetron. The first microwave oven, a Raider range, was released in 1947 for military canteens. It was huge, over 160 centimeters tall and 340 kilograms heavy. The first home microwave came in 1955, and now we can't imagine our kitchens without it. The history of English. English, like many languages, has changed a lot over time. It's a West Germanic language that started from a group of dialects called Anglo-Frisian. There are three main stages in how it turned into the English we know today: Old, Middle, and Modern. Old English came around 1450s AD when the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes settled in the British Isles. It was quite different from what we speak now. Middle English started around the 10th century AD when Normandy and England joined together. This mix changed language under the influence of Norman or Old French. Modern English, the form we use today, owes a bit to Shakespeare. He added around 2,200 new words and tweaked how verbs are used. English is a language spoken by more than 2 billion people worldwide. Pirates. Pirates weren't exactly like the ones in movies, especially not like in Pirates of the Caribbean. In those films, pirate ships are shown as big, fancy ships with lots of food, drinks, and fun. But the real-life pirates had a tough time. They squeezed onto small, old ships with lousy conditions. On those ships, they even transported live cattle, causing diseases. The toilet on a ship was called the head, and because of bad food, pirates often had stomach issues and scurvy. Clean water was also a problem. The water in barrels went bad quickly. Rum was there, but pirates didn't drink it for fun. They mixed it with stale water to make it drinkable. Life for pirates was full of dangers. Attacks on other ships, shipwrecks. It wasn't the carefree adventure we see in movies. The Dancing Plague. One of the weirdest and most mysterious outbreaks was the Dancing Plague in 1518 in Strasbourg. It all started when a lady named Madame Tropa began dancing in the street. People in the town saw her and joined in. They danced day and night, some even fell from exhaustion but kept dancing after resting. After a week, more than 1,000 people were dancing. The authorities tried to help by bringing in an orchestra and setting up a place for the sick, but it didn't work. They even tried bloodletting, but that didn't help either. Finally, they decided to move all the dancers out of the city, and that stopped the epidemic. Strangely, this wasn't the only time it happened. Similar outbreaks occurred in the 14th century in France, the 15th century in Belgium, and even in the 19th century in Madagascar. Scientists think it might have been caused by people eating fungus-infected grains with psychoactive substances. The Little Ice Age. During the Little Ice Age, there was a time when the Earth got really cold. This happened a long time ago, from 133 to 1850. People in the Middle Ages had to deal with extreme conditions just to survive. It affected European countries the most, with super harsh winters and even cold summers. In the 17th century, abnormal frosts in July and August made it hard for crops to grow. This led to famines and many animals died too. Birds even froze while flying in some parts of Europe. We don't know exactly how many people died during this time, but it was a tough period. Some starved, some got sick, and some froze. Paintings from that time show us what life was like. In one painting by George Morland called Breaking the Ice, you can see a family trying to get water from a frozen lake in a freezing wind. Scientists think the Little Ice Age happened because the Gulf Stream slowed down and there was more volcanic activity and less sunlight. We're experiencing the opposite, global warming, which also has serious consequences for our planet and people. So, what do you think of these terrible historical facts that were never spoken? Comment below and subscribe for more.